Overall, as leaders of countries, when the New Year holidays come around, they say that it was a tough year. Basically, 2024 has certainly been a challenging year. Not as good as it could have been. You could say that we've received a significant amount of military financial aid. We could have received more, but the issue here is more about our capacity, our ability to process and utilize that aid, including in our fight. We talked about some things before the broadcast, so we won't mention them for now. We have a cooperation plan with the Europeans, through which we will receive about 50 billion euros in financial aid. We have a number of new security documents signed. As of today, we can say that we are entering next year better prepared in military terms, with additional readiness. Our military-industrial complex has grown very well in terms of the volume of manufactured products and the range of manufactured products. I can't say that we are completely self-sufficient today, but this is a significant breakthrough over the last year or two that we have had. And I can note for myself again that in the next 5, 7, 10 years, the defense industry sector in Ukraine will play a critically important role in the future economy of Ukraine. So basically, the most important conclusions are: we are alive, we are sitting here with batteries. Yes, we don't have electricity, but that's the most important thing. Ukraine has maintained its statehood, and we have a sufficient level of support. I can add that, indeed, there was a document, I think from 2023, but everything is going according to that document. I don't remember if we discussed it in your studio, the reincorporation forecast on the scenarios for the development of the war. It was clearly stated there that America is not interested in seeing Russia, but America is not interested in Russia losing, because they have a misunderstanding of the scenarios of what will happen to Russia. And in this context, we see enough statements and concrete actions in support of Ukraine. Unfortunately, we will not have enough resources to reach the 2022 border there, but the question is probably more for us, because we do not have enough human capital. And it seems to me that we are entering 2025 with the sentiment that there are some negotiation processes underway regarding the status of a freeze. We see that the headquarters of almost all political parties in Ukraine are up and running and are expanding their networks. And for me, there's this feeling, of expecting change in the situation in Ukraine next year. But again, as experts, we base our statements on facts. There are no statements, there's no freeze, the war continues, and we are being shelled with missiles. The broadcast started by saying that most likely in the next month or two, we will have strict power outages. Basically, there are no signs of any easing. Yesterday, the evening was bright. Almost all of Ukraine had electricity, but today the situation has changed drastically. So the level of unpredictability will increase. Russia will raise the stakes in the context of the upcoming freeze. That's obvious. These stakes will also play out in the Kursk region. They will be active on Ukrainian territory, and they will continue to shell. Their task is to extract peace from Ukraine, to implement the freeze under the most comfortable conditions for Russia. By the way, we can discuss today and model what those conditions might be.
Freezes?
Yes.
Oh.
No, well, basically in the format of a discussion.
Let me throw out a thesis, and I'll counter it with a counter thesis. So what do you see?
To start with, I want to say that the official position of the Ukrainian authorities today is that there will be no freeze. We have allocated funds in the budget for financing our army and the military-industrial complex. Our Western partners, America and Europeans, are also budgeting for a format in which they plan to continue military actions throughout 2025. So, informally speaking, everyone officially says that the war will continue, but there are already sociological studies, both in Ukraine and in Russia, that show a change in citizens' attitudes. The most interesting thing about Russia is that, as I recall, about 3 weeks ago, there was this sociological data showing that more than 50% of the population in Russia already believes that the goals of the so-called special military operation have been achieved, and in principle, it's time to end this madness. Moreover, it's worth emphasizing that Russia is already facing quite significant economic problems. We shouldn't rely on official statistics. We need to dig deeper and see what's happening in the construction sector, the banking sector, the labor market, and in other related sectors. As for Ukraine, sociological data, which is not published, shows that more than 50% of Ukrainians also want a conditional cessation of hostilities. The format is not up for discussion, and the most important thing is that we see political parties of various kinds setting up their headquarters. They are preparing either for elections or for something else. So let's return to the question we discussed, the freeze scenario. Here we can analyze Trump's statement, who will surely be a key player in this process. During the election campaign, before he was elected, he said that he would end the war first in 3 days, then in 2 weeks. He will call Putin, Zelensky, talk to them, and somehow everything will calm down. He didn't provide any details. But based on indirect signs, we can draw conclusions from the statements that are coming from various sides, including from Russia, indicating that they are ready for some kind of negotiation format. So the configuration is already starting to take shape there. I can share my subjective view, which shouldn't be taken as the truth. Most likely, after Trump takes office, he will take steps aimed at freezing the conflict. Moreover, his entourage even mentioned the tools they could use to pressure Ukraine, such as a sharp reduction in military and financial aid. In other words, we will essentially be forced to follow the scenario that America wants to propose to us. It's hard for me to say what will be applied against Russia. America doesn't have many trump cards left. Sanctions, as we can see, have been in place for several years, but they aren't critical enough to make Russia stop fighting. We remember that the main goal of the sanctions is to force Russia to end the war. The shadow fleet that Russia is actively launching is estimated to consist of between 600 and 1,800 vessels. They provide, again according to various estimates, between $1.3 billion and $4.5 billion in weekly currency inflow from the sale of oil and oil products. So, in principle, this is more than enough to finance the military campaign, operations plus fill the pockets of Putin and his entourage. The Kiev fleet is directly controlled by Sechin, while the head of Rosneft operates through a group of nominal partners. Financially, Russia has the resources for war, but globally, Russian society is tired. The critically high interest rates on loans and high inflation have led to an increase in the key interest rate in Russia. This has led to an increase in the cost of loans, including mortgages. The issuance of new mortgages has dropped to almost zero. Business loans have skyrocketed, the economy is overheated, and it's starting to bubble up. Plus, there are quite significant labor resource shortages there. In general, the configuration is as follows: freezing the conflict under pressure from Western partners, a ceasefire, and then the negotiation process begins. As the media reported, he set the task to maximize the liberation of the Kursk region by Trump's inauguration. Why is this important? Because Kursk region will surely be part of some exchange fund on the territory of Ukraine. Russia wants to control the Donetsk and Luhansk regions. I think it's more likely that they might give up parts of the Zaporizhia and Kherson regions in exchange for the Kursk region or some concessions. Russia's main goal in this process is to freeze the conflict, which is to reduce the pressure from sanctions. I can't say exactly which sanctions they want to lift today, but it's definitely part of the package that Russia will be bargaining for. As for Ukraine, the messages we've received from the Americans are quite clear. They say that we are burning money on the war in Ukraine every month. The phrase burn money has come up several times in different contexts. We are burning money without getting any results. And plus, we can officially see that Ukraine is gradually, step by step, I don't want to get into conspiracy theories, but it's giving up territory. So the Americans say it's better for us to give you this money for reconstruction and economic development rather than burning it on the uncertain prospects of war. So most likely it will be a freeze and an exchange of territories. It's possible that the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant could be included in the territory exchange with some degree of probability. We can probably negotiate control of the land corridor to Crimea, which Russia dug for itself, and built some highways. Surely we can agree on maintaining the volume of financial aid for economic recovery, plus again for the development of the defense industry. If we take an active negotiating position, security guarantees are critically important for us. We understand that the format of security guarantees that America provided to South Korea is unlikely to be available to Ukraine because American troops won't be stationed here, but format of some mixed contingent of NATO member countries is theoretically possible. Some say that this is impossible in principle, but there is a format, there is some group where it's clearly discussed who this could be. Well, this would probably be a rather optimistic scenario, but it doesn't include black people and, let's say, various stakeholders who are not interested in a freeze.